I'll be honest with you, I thought I was in love. Like, head over heels, stupidly in love. Her name was Jessica. She had this way of lighting up every room she walked into, and when she laughed, it was the kind of laugh you wanted to hear again and again. I wasn't some smooth guy or anything, but somehow, she chose me. At least, that's what I believed. We met in one of those cliché ways, through a friend of a friend at a rooftop party. I was the quiet one in the corner holding a drink, and she was the life of the party. She walked right up to me, tilted her head, and said, "You look like you need saving." And I swear, that was the beginning of my downfall. At first, it was everything you imagine in a good romance. Spontaneous road trips. Late-night tacos. She'd grab my hand while we were walking down the street like she wanted the whole world to know we were together. I felt like the luckiest guy alive. But here's the thing, when someone keeps telling you who they are, you better listen. From the start, Jessica had these little throwaway comments that I just brushed off. Like when her friends teased her about finally settling down, she'd laugh and go, "Please, I'm just having fun until I'm bored." Or when we'd talk about the future, me rambling about maybe buying a house one day, maybe having kids, she'd smirk and say, "You're cute when you dream. But I'm not really a forever type." I thought it was just her being playful. You know, edgy humor. But looking back, those weren't jokes. That was the truth hiding in plain sight. The first real crack showed up around 6 months in. We were at this dinner with her friends, and one of them asked, "So Jess, you think he's the one?" And Jessica, without missing a beat, laughed. Not just a giggle, a full laugh. She squeezed my arm like it was a joke and said, "Oh God, no. He's just a phase. I'm not done having fun yet." Her friends laughed along. I forced a smile. But inside, it was like she'd slapped me in front of the whole table. I should have taken that as my cue to get out. But instead, I told myself I was being dramatic. That she didn't mean it like that. That maybe phase was her weird way of saying she was still figuring things out. Spoiler, she meant exactly what she said. Things slowly shifted after that night. She stopped holding my hand in public. Stopped introducing me as her boyfriend. To her friends, I was just this guy I'm seeing. Meanwhile, I was giving her everything. My time, my money, my heart. I was bending over backwards trying to prove I was worth more than just a temporary role in her life. And then came the night that burned itself into my memory. We were at her apartment, sitting on the couch. I tried to bring up the future again, just casually, asking if she ever thought about where we might be in a year. Jessica put down her wine glass, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "You're sweet. But you're not my forever. You're just a phase. A fun one. And when I'm done, I'll move on." That's how it is. Just like that. Calm. Cold. Like she was talking about changing a playlist. I laughed nervously, hoping she was joking. But she wasn't. My chest tightened. I couldn't even speak at first. Finally, all I managed was, "Wow. Okay. And Jessica?" She shrugged. As if it wasn't a big deal. As if my entire world hadn't just cracked open. That night, I lay awake replaying her words. Just a phase. I felt humiliated. Small. Replaceable. And for weeks, I tried to ignore it. Tried to drown out that voice in my head with excuses. She doesn't mean it. She's scared of commitment. She'll come around. But deep down, I knew. I was holding on to someone who had already told me I was temporary. The turning point came on a Saturday afternoon. We were at the farmer's market, surrounded by couples holding hands, picking out flowers, laughing. And there was Jessica, a few steps ahead of me, scrolling on her phone like I didn't exist. I stopped in my tracks. Watched her walk ahead. And in that moment, I realized something. If someone can stand right next to you and make you feel invisible, then you're already alone. I wish I could say I walked away right then. But the truth? I didn't. Not yet. Because breaking away from someone you love, even if they don't love you back the same way, it's not easy. So I stayed. Hoping. Waiting. Ignoring the pit in my stomach every time she dismissed me. But what I didn't know was that life had already started writing a different ending for me. One where Jessica's little game would backfire in ways she never saw coming. Because when you treat someone like they're disposable, you don't get to be shocked when they start building a future without you. And that's exactly what I did. I wish I could say the conversation with Emma was the hardest part. It wasn't. The hardest part was waking up the next day and realizing she wasn't beside me anymore. The space next to me was cold, empty, and every small sound in the apartment reminded me she was gone. Her toothbrush was still in the bathroom. Her favorite hoodie still hung on the chair. It felt like she had just stepped out for a moment, except she wasn't coming back. At first, I did what anyone does after a breakup. I replayed every memory. I scrolled through old photos, reread texts, and even listened to that stupid playlist she made for me. Part of me thought maybe she'd change her mind, maybe she'd realize I wasn't just a phase. But days turned into weeks, and her silence was louder than any words. That silence became fuel. I started working longer hours. Instead of numbing the pain, I poured it into my career. I stayed late, volunteered for projects no one else wanted, and built connections I had been too distracted to nurture before. My boss noticed. Clients noticed. For the first time, I wasn't just the guy Emma had loved, I was standing on my own. But progress isn't linear. There were nights when loneliness crept back in. I'd scroll social media only to see Emma out at bars, laughing with strangers, glowing in selfies. Her caption once hit me like a punch. Living my best life #, #no strings, #fun only. That was the exact opposite of what I had given her: love, stability, future plans. I remember clenching my phone so hard I thought it might crack. But instead of texting her, instead of begging her to come back, I closed the app and opened my laptop. I started researching. Investments. Certifications. Skills I could learn. If Emma thought I was just a phase, then I would build a life so solid, so undeniable, that no one could ever call me temporary again. Months passed. My body changed. I hit the gym religiously, sculpting myself out of grief and stubbornness. My apartment changed too. I redecorated, throwing away everything that still smelled like her perfume. And then, slowly, my mind changed. I realized Emma hadn't broken me. She had given me a strange kind of gift, the push I needed to stop living for someone else's validation. And just when I started to believe I was finally over her, fate threw me a curveball. I was at a networking event for work. It was one of those fancy rooftop mixers, string lights hanging above, music low enough for conversations but loud enough to feel alive. I was mid-conversation with a potential client when I heard a laugh. That laugh. I turned, and there she was. Emma. She looked almost the same, but not quite. There was a fragility around her smile, a tightness in her eyes I hadn't noticed before. She saw me too, and for a moment, her face froze. Then she smiled like nothing had happened, like we were old friends bumping into each other. "Wow," she said, walking over. "You look different." Different. Yeah. That was one word for it. I was leaner, sharper, and maybe even a little colder. "You too," I replied. My voice was calm, but inside, my heart raced. We made small talk. Polite, surface-level chatter. But beneath her words, I sensed something else. Hesitation. Regret. She asked about my job, my apartment, my life. Her questions weren't casual, they were searching. At one point, she laughed softly and said, "You've really built something for yourself, huh?" I just nodded. Because I had. And it was killing her to see it. Then she dropped the mask. Her tone softened. "I've been thinking about us, a lot. I miss what we had." My chest tightened, but not in the way it used to. This time, it wasn't longing, it was clarity. The girl who once told me I was just a phase, now stood in front of me, realizing the phase had turned into a foundation she could never find again. And as much as part of me wanted to revel in that irony, another part of me wondered, what was she hiding behind that fragile smile? Why now? Because something told me. Emma hadn't come back just out of love. She needed something. And soon, I was about to find out exactly what. I woke up one morning to a text from an unknown number. "You think you've moved on? You think she didn't cry every night after what she said to you? Meet me tonight. She has something to tell you." For a second, my heart froze. It was from her best friend, Emily. I sat there staring at the message, my phone heavy in my hand, my chest tightening like someone had set a vice on it. Why now? After all this time, after I had finally found my rhythm again, why now? I almost deleted the message, but my curiosity burned hotter than my caution. What could she possibly want to tell me? That evening, I drove to the cafe Emily had picked. It was one of those quiet, hole-in-the-wall places with soft jazz playing and barely a handful of customers. I spotted Emily in the corner, her expression unreadable, like she was carrying a secret too big for her shoulders. I slid into the booth opposite her. "Why am I here, Emily?" I asked flatly. She didn't hesitate. Because she messed up. And she knows it. And whether you want to hear it or not, she needs you to. I felt heat rise in my chest, frustration boiling. I don't owe her anything. She made her choice. Emily leaned forward, lowering her voice. "You don't get it. She's not the same girl anymore. She thought she was being clever, living free, keeping you on the side while she figured things out. But the truth? She destroyed herself with that lie. And when she saw you move on, it shattered her." I swallowed hard, forcing myself not to react. "Then that's her problem. Not mine." But Emily pushed the envelope across the table. "She wrote this weeks ago. She wanted to give it to you herself, but she's afraid. Read it, and then decide if you want to walk away for good." My fingers hovered, hesitant. Against every instinct telling me to just get up and leave, I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. Her handwriting, the same loops and swirls I'd once memorized on sticky notes and birthday cards. It read, You were never a phase. I told myself that lie because I thought love could wait, that I could put my heart on pause while I played pretend. I was wrong. Every night I replay the way I broke you. Every night I wish I could go back. I didn't lose a boyfriend that day. I lost my home. And I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. My hands trembled slightly as I folded the letter back up. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Emily's eyes softened. She doesn't expect you to take her back. She needs you to know. I stood up abruptly, shoving the letter into my pocket. Thanks for the message. But I've already built a life without her. I walked out before Emily could respond. That night, though, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my head, louder than I wanted them to. I didn't lose a boyfriend. I lost my home. The cruel part of me wanted to laugh, wanted to say, well, you should have thought about that before you tossed me aside. But another part, the one I hated admitting was still alive, felt something heavier. A mix of sorrow and vindication. She was finally seeing the truth. But far too late. Weeks passed. Then, one Saturday afternoon, while I was at the park tossing a frisbee with friends, I saw her. Standing by the fountain. Alone. Her hair was tied back, her clothes casual, no makeup. Not the radiant, loud, carefree version of her I once knew. She looked small. Like a shadow of herself. She saw me before I could look away. And then, without hesitation, she walked straight toward me. Please, she said, her voice trembling. Just give me 5 minutes. My friends glanced at me, unsure, but I waved them off. We sat on a bench, the summer sun burning down as she wrung her hands like a nervous child. I ruined everything, she whispered. And I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need you to hear me say it to your face. I stayed silent, jaw tight. She looked me dead in the eye. You were never just a phase. You were the only person who ever saw me for me. And I threw that away because I thought fun mattered more than real love. I was wrong. And now I don't even know who I am without you. Her voice cracked, and for the first time in years, I saw tears on her cheeks. And yet, something in me stayed cold. Because while she was unraveling, I was no longer broken. I had rebuilt. And I wasn't about to throw that away. I stood up, my voice steady, calm, final. You wanted freedom. You got it. And I wanted a future. I built it. So no. I'm not your home anymore. I'm just the man who finally realized he didn't need you to be whole. Her lips parted like she wanted to say more, but nothing came out. I walked away. And for the first time, I didn't look back. But here's the thing, life has a way of circling back. Because just when I thought that was the end, something happened that dragged her right back into my orbit. Something that would test everything I thought I knew about forgiveness. And about myself. When my breakup with Emily finally stopped being the main story of my life, I realized something, I had changed. Not just a little. Not in some temporary, bounce-back way. I was sharper, clearer, stronger. The kind of man who wasn't desperate for validation. The kind of man who didn't need to chase someone who was only half in. I had built something real. My business, which I had started with barely enough cash to cover my rent, suddenly took off. By the second year, we had steady contracts. By the third, we were expanding. And in the fourth year, we were turning numbers that made my old paycheck look like a bad joke. But it wasn't just money. It was the freedom. The peace. The knowledge that everything I had was mine, earned with no shortcuts, no handouts, no one telling me I was just a phase. For the first time in my life, I felt untouchable. And then, just when I thought Emily was a closed chapter, she walked back in. It was at a wedding. My college buddy was getting married, and I was one of the groomsmen. The ballroom was filled with laughter, champagne, and the smell of roasted steak. I hadn't thought about Emily in months. But then I heard her voice before I even saw her. That laugh I used to know like the back of my hand. When I turned my head, there she was. Emily. Only, she didn't look the same. Not just older. Not just worn down. No, she looked lost. Her eyes darted around the room like she didn't belong. She didn't have that same sparkle, the "I'm the center of the universe" glow she used to carry so naturally. She spotted me, and for a moment, I saw the shock ripple across her face. "Daniel," she said, almost whispering my name like it hurt her. I smiled politely. "Hey, Emily. Been a while." That's when I noticed, she wasn't with anyone. No hand on her arm, no date in sight. Just Emily. Alone. We made awkward small talk. But the more she tried, the clearer it became, she wasn't the same girl who once told me I was just a phase. She asked about my life. I told her about my work, the travels, the team I had built. Her expression shifted. First polite. Then stunned. Then, something else. Jealousy. "You really made something of yourself, huh?" she said, forcing a smile. "Yeah," I answered, calm. I guess being just a phase wasn't such a bad thing after all. It gave me time to figure out who I really was. Her eyes flickered. That hit her. Later that night, when the music slowed and couples danced under the chandeliers, she came to me again. Her voice was softer now, almost trembling. "I was stupid, Daniel. I thought I was chasing excitement, freedom, but it was just empty. I lost people who actually cared about me." And then she said the words that floored me. "I miss us." For years, I had dreamed of her saying that. For years, I had replayed the breakup, wishing she'd admit she was wrong. But now that it was happening, I felt nothing. No spark. No ache. No longing. Just clarity. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Emily, you were right. I was just a phase. The phase between the man I used to be and the man I became without you." Her face dropped. The music kept playing, couples swayed around us, but in that moment it felt like the room froze. She tried again, her voice sharp now, defensive. "So that's it? You're just going to walk away?" I shook my head. "No, Emily. You walked away a long time ago. I just finally stopped waiting at the door." And with that, I left her standing there, clutching her champagne glass, as I went back to my table where my friends laughed and toasted. For the first time, I wasn't haunted by what could have been. I was finally free. But what I didn't know then, was that Emily wasn't done. Not yet. Because walking away at that wedding was just the start of a storm I never saw coming. And it would shatter the illusion she had built for herself in ways I couldn't have imagined. I never wanted revenge. That's what I kept telling myself. But sometimes, the line between moving on and proving people wrong is so thin, you can barely tell which side you're standing on. 3 years had passed since Mia told me I was just a phase. 3 years since she laughed in my face and said I wasn't someone to build a future with. 3 years since she broke me in a way that forced me to rebuild from the ground up. And now here I was, standing in the very life she once said I wasn't capable of creating. I had my own company. A real company. I had employees who trusted me, clients who respected me, and a future that was entirely mine. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was thriving. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. Because the moment I felt truly free of her shadow, Mia walked back into my life. It happened at an industry conference. I was invited to speak on a panel about startups and resilience. My company had been getting recognition, so it wasn't unusual, but what was unusual was seeing her in the crowd. Mia. Her hair was shorter, her face sharper, and her smile, God, her smile was exactly the same. Except now, it wasn't aimed at me. She was there with a group, probably her colleagues. But when her eyes landed on me on stage, something shifted. Her confidence cracked, even if just for a second. After the panel, she found me. Daniel, she said softly. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. I froze. For years, I had replayed what I'd say if I ever saw her again. Would I tell her how much she broke me? Would I smile like nothing ever happened? Would I ignore her altogether? But in that moment, all I could do was nod. Mia. She gave me a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're doing well. Really well. I could hear the weight in her tone. It wasn't just a compliment, it was regret. Yeah, I said simply. I am. We stood there in silence for a few moments. And then, like she couldn't hold it in anymore, she whispered, I made a mistake. Those 4 words, they were the very ones I once begged to hear. But now, instead of healing me, they felt empty. You said I was just a phase, I reminded her. Her face fell. I was young. Stupid. I didn't know what I wanted. But seeing you now, you're the kind of man I always dreamed of ending up with. And there it was. The full circle moment. She didn't see me as a phase anymore, she saw me as the future she thought she deserved. But it was too late. Mia, I said gently but firmly, I'm not the same guy you left behind. And honestly, I'm glad you said what you did back then. Because if you hadn't, I wouldn't have built this life. I wouldn't have pushed myself the way I did. So, thank you. But I don't need you anymore. She blinked, stunned. Her mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but no words came out. Finally, she just nodded, her eyes glassy. I guess I was wrong. I gave her a polite smile and walked away. My chest felt lighter with every step. Because for the first time, I didn't feel like the boy who wasn't enough. I didn't feel like the guy she left behind. I felt like a man who knew his worth. And that was something no one, not even Mia, could ever take away from me again. Looking back now, I realized something important. Sometimes the people who break you are the ones who unintentionally set you free. Mia thought she shattered me, but really, she forced me to discover the strength I never knew I had. So if you're watching this and you've ever been told you're just a phase, or not enough, remember this, those words don't define you. You do. And when you finally build the life you deserve, the same people who doubted you will be the ones left speechless. Because at the end of the day, the greatest revenge isn't anger or bitterness, it's living a life so full and so strong that the people who once dismissed you have no choice but to watch in silence. And that's exactly what Mia had to do.